Just because a character is top tier should not discourage you from playing your shit, right? Because think about it this way. There's a strong consensus that Hayabusa is the best character in the game. But here's the deal, man. Nobody fucking plays him. So who gives a shit? So it's like, it doesn't, and the thing is that when people say a character's top tier, everyone's like, well, everybody's gonna flock to Hayabusa. No. I've been playing fighting games since 2010. Oh, no, that's half true. I actually been playing fighting games since 2009. I'm an 09er. The number one thing I learned from playing card games since I was 12 years, I started playing card games with the first Yu-Gi-Oh, right? So Dad's talking now. I'm getting cooked too, so it's all good. I've been playing competitively, whether in a card game capacity or fighting game capacity, since I was 9 years old. It's been a minute. 9? 8? 10? Maybe been 10 or 11. I started playing card games with the first Yu-Gi-Oh card game. Like, I went to my Target to get the fucking starter deck for Kaiba, because I was like, Yugi fucking sucks. Kaiba is the shit. He has 3 blue eyes, white dragons. I learned the hard way that's not how card games work. They actually got to collect shit. Now, I've been at this for a minute. The number one thing that I learned about competitive games is that nobody flocks to top tier unless they're playing card games. Because for some reason in the card game world, when you're in this tournament with all these players, they just want to win. Like, card game players just want to win with their shit. So there's like 3 groups, right? There's the players that want to play what the best thing is and understand that you have to know the best thing because you're going to run into the best thing. Then you have the players who are trying to beat the best thing. That's like your anti-meta. So you have meta and anti-meta. And then in the third tier, you have people who are just there to play their shit or get featured on some YouTube channel where they want to play something obscure like their Blue Eyes White Dragon deck or whatever the fuck. Doesn't matter. Yeah, I think it's just the case that a card game isn't as technical. It isn't as technical in terms of, like, how do I word this thought? It's a lot easier to solve metagames in card games. So because you can solve metagames easier in card games, you can walk into events with a very clear idea of what's going on. So after that, it's just a matter of just replicating the skill. Right? Because like when I played Gladiator Beasts, this is way back during Teledad format, right? And those of you guys who don't know anything about Yu-Gi-Oh, I'm gonna spew a bunch of deck names that it doesn't matter about the deck name. Just understand what I'm trying to say, right? Keep up with me if you can. So when I was playing Gladiator Beasts, that deck was the only deck at the time that could moderately compete with Teledad. So if you're walking into a tournament, you could realistically prepare for 2 matchups. Well, there was actually 3, but no one played it. But there was 2 matchups they had to worry about. So if you know that the best deck is Teledad, and the deck underneath that is Gladiator Beasts, it's very easy to prepare for those things because those are the things that you're likely to see. Because top players or players in card games understand that, you know, if you lose twice, you're done for the day. So you got to play like what's going to help you win. Now, reversing that or switching that over to card games, it's not card games, to fighting games. There's no way to guarantee what the metagame is because of the execution barrier behind characters. I think that's what you're talking about, Tensa. Because of the execution barrier with a certain character, which is why I think fighting games for the most part will always stay balanced despite there being a character that's definitively top tier. You're always going to run into situations where, like, let's say for whatever reason, Marie Rose is the best character in the game. I know, right? This is the timeline where Donald Trump isn't president. Obama never became a politician. It's a weird timeline. But in this timeline, Marie Rose is top tier. But let's say that in this timeline, that Marie Rose is top tier. Let's say she's like the most execution heavy character in the game, right? Where if you run into a Marie Rose, she's going to fucking cook you. But her execution is high. Because her execution is high, that's what's preventing people from flocking to her as being top tier. Besides the fact that, you know, you can't play her. You know, everybody who plays her is in jail right now or on probation. But like executional barriers with characters prevent people from playing top tiers or characters that might be considered very good. Now, What gets dangerous is when you have a character that's really powerful, but their door to get into that power is very limited. Like, take Tina. Tina's not that technical. I don't care what any Tina main says to you, because they're lying. This character's not that technical in comparison to like other characters that do a fuck ton of damage. Like Rydell does a fuck ton of damage, but he has a technicality barrier. He has an executional barrier that prevents people from playing him at a level that's very accessible. Same thing is true, for instance, for like Hayate. Or like Hayate, Hayabusa. These are two characters with fairly high execution barriers. Apparently, Hayate has these untechable setups where he can just fucking cook your ass. But you'll never see that because Hayate players all suck. And it's not their fault that they suck. It's just that their character's challenging. It's not their fault. It's not their fault you're not going to see a Hayabusa. It's just that he has a high technical ceiling. So he could be the best character in the game, but you'll never know that because every Hayabusa you play drops the combos. And it's like, how is this character so good when I'm beating him? He could be really good. It's just that his technical gap is really high. Which is why, and Tensa's alluding to it, it's like that's why people were so annoyed about Nico. Because her door of entry, let me rephrase this thought. Let me rephrase the sentence before I walk myself into this weird corner, if you know what I mean. The door to get into her house is very easy to get into. So you can get into there and do whatever you want. So like her execution barrier isn't as high as like Rydell, fucking Ayane, fucking Hayabusa. That's also why people think Diego's fucked up. Because Diego, like, look, I played against, I don't even know how many Diegos. It's like, I think this character's really good. But the thing is that it looks like he only has 5 buttons in his command list. Because I only see 5 buttons. And they're all fucking great. So it's like, I don't know. Like, does he have more buttons? Does he have something other than a shoulder to get in? I don't know. But apparently it's rocking people's worlds. Like, and that's the thing. Like, in fighting games, you always have to think about, like, a character's potential difficulty will influence them on the tier list. So, as far as I'm concerned, Hayabusa will never be top tier for me. He will always be A tier. Because in a competitive landscape, why play Hayabusa when you can play Nico? Like, why you don't have to worry about that execution in a tournament, right? Like, if I'm walking into an event tomorrow and I want to win, right? I'm not playing Hanaka. I'm just keeping it 100. I'd love to play her in tournament. That'd be really fun to watch. Same thing with Rydell. It'd be really fun to watch, but goddamn, this character is stressful. Like, there's so much bullshit that you got to navigate around just to reach the barrier of being okay. Now, Nico, you don't have to think. Don't listen to any Nico player. They're not thinking. Like, they are, but the amount of mental tax that they have to do in an event is a lot smaller than, say, Hanaka. Hanaka requires a lot of brain power. Really high. Base, very little brain power. You don't have to really, like, you can just run your script and make it all the way to top 8. I mean, we saw that. And there's no disrespect to Matt. Matt is fucking nuts. He is base. But the thing is about base as a character, and there's always shade. And again, like, I'm not trying to say this to diminish what like Matt's doing with this character, but this character's fucked up. Like, and we've seen that. Like, there are times when like when Matt was playing against Rakudo and Matt just like ran a train through him, I'm just like, what the fuck is this character? And the thing is too, which is why I think this character base is so competitive, is because he's running, like, he's doing all of this stuff to you, and you're just like, do I get to play? Do I get to play? Should I go to the bathroom? Like, do I just watch my character die? Like, and the thing is too, they're not thinking that much because their set play or their ability to just default to their default game plan is not as mentally taxing as Hayabusa. Like, it's just not as mentally taxing. Same is true with Tina. Like, they're not as mentally taxing on you. So it's very viable going to a tournament and just rolling over people. Your matches could be like 4 minutes long. You could go through your entire pool and be ready for lunchtime. Like, your pool could start at 8 o'clock. If you're in that pool and a godlike bass player, you'll be done at like 8:30 tops. And you'll be like, damn, why is everybody else playing their pool matches? I'm done. Oh, that's because they're playing bullshit characters like Hayabusa, Elliot, Brad Wong, Lee Fang, Jan Lee, Kokoro, Zach. They gotta try for their wins. But why waste your time trying? We could play bass, Tina, Nico, kind of Rig. Like, why waste your time with Bayman? You could be the best Bayman in the world, but who gives a fuck if you get cooked by bass? Like, is it worth that? Is it worth it to know that, like, I'm the best bass on the planet? I know every character's moveset in and out. I can counter all their shit. But if I run to a base, I'm going to look like I just started playing. Like, is it worth that mental frustration? I don't think so. So, if you're going to a tournament, right, you should definitely consider the ease of use of a character if you want to be competitive. But also, on that same token, if your character is very strong, but there's a decent to moderate high execution barrier, I don't really recommend it. Like, I think Hayabusa is a fantastic character. This character's fucked up, but I don't think he's viable in the long stream of a tournament because there's so much else you have to be thinking about. Because if you drop a combo, then what's the fucking point? Where, like, if I'm going to a tournament, I'd probably play, like, Nico, Bass, Tina, characters that not necessarily that they have, like, these high execution barriers, but because their execution barrier is very moderate, you can roll through a tournament without having to mentally tax yourself throughout the entire day. That's why, like, despite everyone said about Seth and Yun and Street Fighter, you never saw Seth and Yun players. Everybody knew those characters were fucked up, because they had execution barriers that prevented, like, the Yun players and the Seths from making it all the way to the top. Now, we obviously saw later on that when you have a character, a specialist, that's maining that character for a very long time, that they can make things happen. That's true. Like, I'm not saying it's impossible for a Hayabusa player to win a tournament. It's clearly possible. But you got to keep in mind that, like, is your ability to go to your default game plan within the realms of your execution? Like, can your execution transcend the mental strain that execution has on you? And for the most part, it tends to be no for a lot of players. And that's fine. That's fine. It's totally fine to be a specialist. There's nothing wrong with that. But you got to understand that, like, if you're looking to be competitive now, and this is your first title, don't do it with Hayabusa. Just don't bother. You can like the character and play them. I'm not saying you shouldn't play them. But if I'm going to a tournament, you just got to understand that, like, you're going to have a harder time than, like, you see the Nico players playing. They're going to look a lot better than you. And it has nothing to do with the skill gap. You can be both equally skilled. But because Nico allows you to utilize more of your brain, you're just going to see more stuff. You know? That's all I got. That's all I got for that little rant there. But I don't know. Execution plays a very big part in a character's success.